Ta-da! And welcome to Joseph's Model Railway and Toy Room. Thank you as always for joining me. Just a little bit of housekeeping. You don't need to worry about liking or following or subscribing to any of the videos I put out there. I just put them out there where I can have a holly jolly great time doing so. This is the bit where I say now. But what I've got to tell you is an interesting one. We have so much content at the moment I need to be getting out at the moment, but I'm having limited time getting a chance to edit it and be in the room modeling as well, which we have been busy, so don't despair. However, this video though is a bit of a part one in a three-part series of what we're doing modeling a scene. For the first part we're going to talk about today, wiring. Second part will be a bit more development on the scene, and probably sometime next year we will get back to the third part, which is finalizing the scene, but you'll see what I'm talking about. But let's get started with this first part of the video, which of course is about wiring a Dapol semaphore motorized signal to a DCC Concepts digital Cobalt IP point motor. It sounds so simple, and you know what? For 99% of you, it is so simple, and I'm going to talk about that in the first half. And the second half, for all of those people like me that have the wrong face and everything always just seems to go wrong, I'm going to talk to you about the other avenue you will need to take, which, believe you me, I have done all the research and homework for you, and this is the solution. I'm not going to lie to you. I've spent more than 100 hours, wasted more than 100 hours in trying different combinations. I've been working closely with Mick at DCC Concepts, the entire team, and of course, Keith at Dapol as well, have just been wonderful in assisting me with basically where we are today. And it goes without saying, both teams are completely flabbergasted, and how do you think I feel? But the good news is we do have a solution and we've got some operation. So let's dive in now. It's going to be super duper quick and we'll get back to it so you can see the rest of what's been going on. So stay tuned. Here we go.
Well, here is our beautiful two-aspect signal here. And here is the wiring diagram you'll need to pay attention to. However, the new variations of Dapol signals now feature a orange and brown wire, with yellow being the common. But you will come across a lot of the old diagrams showing all yellow, and a switch that may need to be added, which we'll come to. Right, now let's get started with this. They give you a handy little template, and so I just drill a small little hole, mark out where I want it to be, and 15 mil is what we're going to need to do, but I make sure that we've got clearance underneath and we're not going to bust into anything else. Here's the base of the unit, fairly substantial as we come under. I've marked it with some tape and an indicator so I can roughly see where it's going to sit, because it sits reasonably close to that point motor, but I do have enough tolerance there, so we should be just fine. Of course, now we're going to take a 15 mil Forstner bit. I like a nice clean cut if I can. I'm just gently massaging it around for that extra bit of wiggle room as needed. I'm going through it to make sure everything's looking good, and let's suck up that mess with a vacuum cleaner and proceed. I will need to hack some of the ballast out for a nice clean fit with the base, but we'll come back and clean that up. It's a really nice method. Slide it in and do up the nut. And it doesn't really matter how thick the surface is you're using, it can accommodate accordingly. So this wiring now, let's go back to that. Look, it looks quite straightforward what we need to do to power it up. However, I did just go back to DCC Concepts and say I've got this new one, and there's a different series of wires, to which they quite simply gave me this updated diagram. And of course, because I've got two aspects and 2-point motors, this is my magic diagram I created, and leaving aside that additional switch to the right there, because I'm not sure if I did or didn't. That's why we've got a question mark there. Let's move on, shall we? And we're going to purchase a power supply that's just for this signal only. It's a medical grade power supply from DCC Concepts, and here is the hardware we need. These are the switches that they recommend as well we would need to manually override. So I purchased everything I possibly could, and here we are, nice and neat and tidy. Let's start putting this thing together. I'm also going to make a little panel here that I can manually have the switches mounted under the board should they come out of orientation. Some nice clean solders to those switches. And of course we'll slide on a little bit of heat shrink and we'll make it all look nice and tidy. Deciding to elevate it a little further, I thought I'd knock up this bracket and add a bit of paint. And I am aware we're not going to really see that style of semaphore with the little wedge cut out unless it's a yellow and black distant one. But what the hey here, we're just all having a little bit of fun. So a little bit of green spray paint, and this is a little process I created for a bracket. And the holes were already the right size for the switches anyway, and I thought I could just screw this underneath. It would look quite snazzy. And we'll just wire them up to the point motors as per that diagram.
Welcome to Beneath the Board. Well, I don't want to bore you too much in the details, but let's quickly have a chat about what's going on. The first thing is, it's a great example with this point because there are actually no signals directly wired out of it, unlike the others, as we can see over here, which in the frog hole has a sneaky little diode that makes the signals work. But if we just return to this one, this is a nice, clean, simple one. And there are ground signals, but we'll talk about that in a future video. So in the moment, it's just the standard feed in. And of course, we're using a yellow, orange, and brown that's wired accordingly, as we've mentioned in the diagram. Now, if we just slide around, you'll see them poke through. Just turn the camera around really briefly here. Around. Hello. See them running across the back here. Hey, hey, hey. And penetrating through the hole. Remember, we have the canal located just up here, which is a bit of an awkward situation. But from that hole, we're actually going to trail down to go around the canal. And as we make our way down, you'll notice we're going to pick up on that same feed the power that comes in to the power. If we slide underneath, we can see we have the DCC Concepts medical grade power supply. So they do a standard one. This costs you a few dollars more, but it is tried and tested, and also you won't hear that terrible noise that I can hear coming from the Woodland Scenics ones beside me, which I can hear the capacitors humming away. Also, if we just spin around while we're under the board, there's the switches over there to turn the layout on. Two switches, one for the train, for the DCC trains and points. And of course, the second one is for the accessories. So as we return, we've picked up that power line, and we're just going to keep them grouped because they all go together, coming across, here to the canal, coming over, and we're ready now to anchor on. Switch 1 and then switch 2 can live in here. Remember, 3 cords, we do end up with a redundant one. And to anyone saying, well, you only need 3 of those switches up there, not 4, that is true, but the logic in this will become clear later on. Here is the second one we need to work on at the moment, and you can see all I've done is just dangle the leads down. We're just about to route them around the corner accordingly. This is a much better demonstration though, showing what I mean. So here we are, neatly wired with the leads we need for this signal. Here is our diode coming in for our standard red-green signals, which of course is running up to that signal gantry. And of course they're piggyback in the standard red and black feeding the points here. And there is your red and green accordingly. So of course when it comes to these finer wires that we have here with the dipole signal, what I like about it is we can still take the same set of cable cutters and still make our cut. As you can see, it's done quite a nice job. Is once we slide them on, as you can see, that's clearly not going anywhere. Right, we're all wired in now, and it's nice and clean and simple if we ever need to maintain or do anything to it. And of course, we're just going to grab a brush and just apply a light bit of weathering around it just to give it that look. We'll detail it a little bit later, but just a little bit of light wash on it is all we're going to do. I just dusted on a little bit of brake dust as well at the bottom. Well, here we are, the final stretch, ready to slot this box on. Now, I've made all the possible checks and provisions I can. I did not test this before we installed it, and I have a feeling it might just go right this time. So what we're going to do, we have everything all prepped up. I am now ready
for us to bring the box in. And we're going to plug in switch 1 and switch 2 and slot that power in. Is that once your signal is in the right place and screwed on, you just, that's it. I do like that. As you can see, all my other signals seem to be operating just fine at the moment. But based on that wiring diagram, and they've been wired up exactly, I applied the power, and this seems to be happening. A big thanks to Keith at Dapol, who grabbed the exact same point motors and recreated the scenario from my end. And this switching mechanism that's built into these point motors is exactly what should happen. You just need to do this and it will work. Well, quite clearly, it didn't work for me. And that's why we're going to move over to the next chapter. And really, all else I could discover online was the fact that some people go along and install some diodes to try and reject any interference. I also used a series of shielded wire and various different types of insulation. No good. Ta-da! The fix that works. 10 minutes versus 100 hours. I wish I was here 100 hours ago. Well, here it is, the moment we've been waiting for. It couldn't get any simpler. Here it is, a nice simple box, very, very simple wiring. Shouldn't take me more than about 3 minutes to wire this in. We'll just tap a black and a red power feed from one of the point distribution blocks, and let's get stuck into it, shall we? Okay, well, you can see we just took a black and a red from our point distribution block. We poked back to the other side where the canal is. And you can see I've just temporarily wired it up. So here comes the DCC feed in, and of course it's all clearly labeled out. Here is our black and red going to the power of the box, and of course our brown, yellow and orange respectively for signal 1 and signal 2. And of course, if they're not in the way you want, rather than rewiring them around, you just simply take these plugs out and swap them over. And if it's not in the right orientation, i.e. it needs to be red instead of green, well, that's just a matter of swapping the orange and brown over respectively. We won't worry too much about that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get this programmed. The signal is up there where we'll clip it onto. We're not going to do that just yet because I want to make sure this works and there's no interference. And we've got to program it using this button. The instructions, of course, are exceptionally straightforward. You really can't go too wrong with any of this. The learning button, and then it's just a matter of pushing a button on the DCC system once you've called that channel up. Again, in my case, I'm using the alpha system, so it's just a matter of going to signal number 7 or 6 and pushing the button, and that's the learning done. Well, so I hope. Let's get into it. Okay, we've got some power going on at the moment. We won't need the DCC controller, but that's what you could be using. Again, we've got our alpha system here that we're using for our point controller, and of course we've got the Mimic panel as well. As always with this system, if you're using it, don't forget to turn this power switch on to get the system running. Very frustrated about that. I'm trying not to give too much away. There are things going on around me. I don't want to give too much away. So basically, if we come down now to our little box, there should be a light indicating it's powered up. And there is. So this is what's known as the learning button here. If we push it once, it's ready to program 1, signal 1. And if we double tap it, it will flash twice to indicate signal 2 is ready. So I'm going to push it once, and it's flashing. The point that we need to address it to will be number 7. So we'll push number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could use the Mimic panel, but I want to make sure I don't stuff anything up. Right. And I can see it stopped flashing over there. So what we're going to do now is double press it. One, two. Yep, a double flash, like they said. This is starting to look easy. And the next point we need is, of course, going to be point number 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, I will be labeling this later. So we'll push it. And sure enough, it stopped flashing. Well, that should be it. The question is, let's slide it up and see what happens.
that should be it. So what we'll do, we'll take our box and we'll just slide it into position. Again, if they're not going in the right ones we need, we swap them around. But at the moment, I just want to make sure we haven't heard any crazy sounds coming from it, so it sounds very isolated. And we'll screw these up in just a second. Well, it's an absolute winner. It goes without saying. If we just push the button, you'll see the signal change, and we'll see the alternate route is coming in. So main line is not cleared for going. So look, this has been absolutely fantastic. 10 minutes it's taken me. It really makes me furious at the time I've invested trying to get to where we are now. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, we are now done. This is how it's going to be. And this scene, as I said, big things I got to tell you about coming up here. I can't wait to share them with you in a jiffy. But now that it's all wired, that's all I need to tell you about. I also love the fact that when you do change the signal, you get that tremendous little bounce when you've made the change. So it's not just literally up and down. As you look carefully, you will certainly notice there is a little bit of a bounce when it comes back up into position here. See that little ding, ding, ding? I really think that's a nice little touch they've done. Ever since I first became aware of these, there's a lot written about the sensitivity and you've got to do things. This isn't just a simple plug and play device. Things can go very quickly wrong, which is why I did as much homework as I can. But still, for all the right things and all the boxes I ticked, I still ended up here. The good news is it's all good. So anyone that's wiring with the Cobalt IP digital point motor with a Dapol motorized signal and you're getting crazy interference and don't know why, I'm telling you now, save your time. A small investment of about $50 will yield amazing results and you can get on with the rest of the scenes that you want to be building. Well, that's it. Neatly wired up. This whole process has cost me a little less than 100 Australian dollars. For the little gadget and the freight getting it here. And of course, while we don't need our semaphore reset switch, which I deliberately built to put underneath so you could reset if they ended up in the wrong polarity, I like this little thing. So I think I'm going to leave that just where it is in this empty spot to remind me of the happy green that I love to see everywhere. So here we are. But that's funny. Most of your layout is sort of around about the sort of late 60s, 70s, 80s. We're pushing on to electrified signals, which is pretty much what you see everywhere. So what's the story with the semaphore exactly? Ah, that is an excellent story, and I can't wait to share that with you in the next video. Bing! Light bulb moment. That goes without saying. That's exactly what it was. As soon as I came across this little particular piece of hardware and confirmed it with Keith and said, yes, this is going to be an option for you that will work. And as you can see, it's been absolutely magnificent. So hence why, unlike the first part, I've decided to switch the lights on because I have now seen the light with the solution that we needed to create. And I couldn't be happier with it. But that is nothing compared to what I have in store for you to show you in the next video. Again, not the fully completed scene, but boy, oh boy, have I got some amazing surprises that I haven't seen anyone else doing or building or showing you just yet. And I can't wait to show you that. So that's coming up in the next video. So everyone, as always, girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, please do stay safe. And I can't wait to see you in that next one. Toodles!